All right, I've already worked through this question, but I want to show you how to do this question 7, which I noticed was missing from my notes. That's why I'm adding this in here. You can see that this is a FOIL question, right? Now, remember, FOIL can be done, I can think of 3 different ways you could do it. Now, you can see I demonstrated it with the box, okay? And some of you hate the box. There's nothing magical about the box other than the fact it helps you organize your information. I've even gotten to the point where I like to write down things like, so you can notice that down here in this corner, when I multiply negative 4 radical 2 and positive 8 radical 2 together, I got negative 32 radical 4. Now we know the square root of 4 is 2, so you can see that I simplified this into negative 32 times 2, and we know that negative 32 times 2 is negative 64. What I've started to do is to add the like term below it. So you notice this 36 up here, which was my 4 times 9, I put it below that. Now, why am I doing that? Well, I've noticed when you line things up vertically, you end up being able to think through the process of combining like terms. That gives you part of your final answer. And then on the other hand, you've got when you did the 4 and the 8 radical 2, you ended up with 32 radical 2. And the negative 4 radical 2 and the positive 9 gives me negative 36 radical 2. And when I add those together, I get negative 4 radical 2. And that's where I get my answer from. And as we talked about in class when I did this the first time, reversing those is no big deal. You get the same, it's the same answer. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't bother me if you write it the other way. Now, some of you don't like the box. You would rather, let's get this right, 4 minus 4 radical 2, 4 minus 4 radical 2, and make sure I get that right, 9 plus 8 radical 2. 9 plus 8 radical 2. You would rather see it done with this, 36, 32 radical 2, negative 36 radical 2, and then when you do that, I mean, all I'm doing is firsts, outsides, insides, lasts. That's all I'm doing. I'm just doing it kind of quickly. And then lastly, you would have this one right here would be negative 32 radical 4. And then you would have to see, oh, that's negative 32, oops, not square root. I've already taken the square root, times, which is my negative 64. And that becomes a like term to this one. And then you can add them together and get the same answer, negative 28 minus 4 radical 2. So that is another way to look at it or organize your information. The third way I can see doing that question or setting it up is kind of a little bit like we might have done in elementary school in terms of how it's set up vertically. We're multiplying these things together. And you can see that if I do 8 radical 2 times negative 4 radical 2, that would be my negative 32 radical 4. And if I do 8 radical 2 times 4, that would be 32 radical 2. And if I do 9 times 4 radical 2, that would be 36. Notice that I'm writing the like terms or like radicals in the same spot. And then 4 times 9 is 36. And then we can add these together. Of course, this is the one that you need to replace, right? Negative 32 times 2, which is negative 64. Of course, that number is now going to get added to the 36, and that's where we get our negative 28 from. I missed a sign. I missed a sign right there, right? So that would be negative 4 radical 2. Still get the same result, but 3 different ways to kind of organize your information. I don't care which one you do. You use the box, you just set them up side by side and kind of FOIL them and add the like terms, or you line them up vertically and do it kind of elementary school style. Doesn't matter to me which way you do it, as long as you get it done the way, show the work based on the method you choose. Okay, thanks. So this question is just a FOIL question. Don't make it anything more than it is. And I don't care if you are the type of person that likes to draw the arrows, firsts, outsides, insides, lasts, or if you want to set up a box like I like to do just to organize my information. Or if you want to do the elementary school version that's over here on the right side, where you line them up vertically like that and think about, okay, what do I get when I multiply these two, and then these two, and then these two, and then these two, and write it out in some sort of fashion down below where you're adding like terms. It's not going to matter to me as long as you show me your work and you come up with the correct answer, which in this case is a 1. Because the insides and outsides are actually canceling each other out, right? The 2 radical 3 and the negative 2 radical 3 are canceling themselves out. And you end up with 4 take away 3. Now, I know you get the square root of negative 9, but remember, radical 9 is 3. So that would really be a negative 3. And so then you can combine the 4 and the negative 3 and get positive 1 for the final answer of this question. Okay, but that's just taking your pick on which method you want to use for FOIL. And I know this video might be shorter, so you might have to pause it because I'm going back and doing it after I've taken the notes. I apologize for that. Hopefully, what I've written down does make sense. But you can always ask me in class if something doesn't. Once again, another FOIL question. Pause it if you want to try it on your own, or look away from the screen and try foiling it yourself. I obviously, in my example, I used a box, but once again, there's nothing magical about the box. If you need a reminder of how to use the box, just because maybe you don't have a good strategy, I think the box is a good one. I use one of them, so I put my box underneath one of the binomials. Those would be the headings of the column. And then I take this other one and I make it the heading of the rows, and then I just match things up. Like 5 times 5. 5 times 5 radical 3, and I continue. But this time the opposites, the outsides and insides are not canceling out because one's 25 radical 3, the other one's negative 10 radical 3. So they add together to give me 15 radical 3. And then the other two are 25, and then we ended up with negative 30 in the bottom right corner of my box, because that's negative 10 times the square root of 9. And I get 25 minus 30, which is negative 5. I don't care which way you write it, whether you write it like this or write it like this. It's the same answer for both. But you find your favorite way to FOIL, because that's all this is FOIL. Make sure your notes say what you're doing so that you understand them, so that when you see a problem like this on the test, it makes sense to you what you're going to be doing. Otherwise, notes aren't that helpful. Once again, I covered this one at the beginning, so but in case you need it, here it is again. So you've probably already seen this in the video, but there's that one. But it's just a FOIL question. Now, question 8 is also a FOIL question, but a lot of kids make mistakes with this one because they think they can just distribute. I know what they're doing. They're using a property of Algebra 1, but they're misusing it because it's a binomial. If I were you, I would write it like this and then FOIL it in whatever favorite way you like to FOIL. So it doesn't matter to me which way you FOIL, but I probably would use that. Okay. The next one is more foiling practice. Take your favorite pick on how you want to do it. But you should end up with 70 as your final answer. Sorry, it's a bad looking 0. Because the outsides and insides cancel out. Now, conjugates, this term conjugates, just as a matter of, I want you to see, they're not opposites, okay? So maybe I should type that somewhere. Only second sign gets changed. Notice that. Only the second sign gets changed. First one stays the same. Second sign gets changed. Those are called conjugates. And conjugates, when you multiply them together, get rid of the radicals. Now, that's an important point for something that we're going to see in a second. Okay? For instance, we're going to have a process called rationalizing the denominator. Now, to be honest, rationalizing the denominator doesn't need to be done anymore because we used it when we didn't have calculators. Dividing by a really long decimal that never stops and never repeats is not exactly fun. So we developed a way called rationalizing the denominator so that it would only have a nice rational number in the bottom, something that would be easy to divide by. But now that we have calculators, we don't really have to, sorry for yawning so much, but we don't really have to do this process. However, we will still do a few of them because it's part of the curriculum, but it's not the most useful thing in the whole wide world. So you're not going to see us doing a lot of this as we go throughout the semester. So first thing we do, we multiply the top and bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. So that's step number one. So you got to find the denominator, right? In this case, it's radical 5 plus 2. And we change the sign of the second one, right? So conjugate just means change the sign of the second one. If you multiply something by the bottom, you must also multiply the top. Now that's because we only want to multiply by the number 1. Anything over itself is 1. Therefore, we don't want to change the value of what we're dealing with. We're only changing what it looks like so it's easier to deal with. Now, honestly, we don't have to do this process because calculators, but we'll go through it. So the bottom is FOIL, right? So you know me, I'm the boxer. You don't have to box it. You can do whatever you want, but you better show your work, so that I can see how you got your value. In this case, I got the denominator of 1. On the top, I don't really have to do FOIL. I am distributing, right? The 3 times the radical 5, the 3 times the negative 2, and that's how you got 3 radical 5 minus 6. And yes, it's okay if you write 3 radical 5 minus 6 like this, because if the denominator is a 1, you don't necessarily need to write that. If it was something other than a 1, you better doggone write it, because you will be wrong if you don't. Remember, pause the video if you need to copy things down, because I know that I'm kind of going through after the fact. It took a lot longer to do this when I was in class and writing it out with you. Okay, so here's a more difficult rationalizing question, because as you can see, first we found the conjugate of the denominator, right, by changing the sign of the second one to 3 minus 2 radical 5, and we multiplied it to the top and bottom. But this one is going to require FOIL for not only the top, but also the bottom. So take your favorite pick on how you like to do FOIL, but you've got to do it twice. Once for the top, once for the bottom. The bottom ended up giving me negative 11. Sorry for yawning. And the top ended up giving me 13 minus 5 radical 5. And like I said, if the bottom is anything but a 1, you better be writing it down. Okay, that's enough for this video.